Hi everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to my new subscribers, welcome to old friends. I'm so pleased that you could join me here today. Um, what's going on? Hopefully good things. And I see all the yarn sales online, but I am not buying yarn. I am so embarrassed. In cleaning up, trying to organize the craft room, I found more yarn. Okay. Unless they're selling yarn for 5 cents for a skein, I have no reason to buy sock yarn. None, none, none. So I need to get to step in and using some of that yarn. I found so much stuff. At some point, I must have thought because I had a sock machine, I was going to be making socks to sell. And I guess at some point I realized I can make socks and sell, but I wouldn't be making a profit for it. But by then, I had bought so much yarn. But shh. Okay. Now, where were we? Last week I talked about flick knitting. Yeah, to the person who didn't think I can hand knit. Yes, I can. Um, Yeah, and here's one of my tins with needles. Ooh, look at that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blind you. Well, I took my flick knitting student self to the bus. And I figured out why I have been having so much trouble. I have been tensioning my yarn around my little finger and then putting it like this. It never worked. This was always too loose. After countless videos, I found someone who tensions her yarn around this finger. And guess what? It works perfectly. So now I can flick. It's awesome. And you can go really fast. And this is so funny because I just finished watching a video from someone who was online. She posted online a video of herself sitting in her seat on an airplane knitting. And there's a woman in front of her who's knitting like a speed demon. She's like, oh my God, what is that? And I look, the lady is flick knitting. So she is going like, wow. So this worked out well because I was a new student and I'm glad I learned how to tension. It made the knitting go so easy and so sweet. I'm not sure why I never figured that out. And so these were all right, but as you see, I started out with a whole bunch of stitches, but I had to reduce it so that I could get some control while I was practicing. Now that I think I know what I'm doing, I'm going to cast on, just to practice, on some regular long needles, and I'm going to practice, practice, practice till I can be a speed demon. Yes, yes, okay. And what else? Oh, before I go further, let me please tell you, I am taking the summer off from podcasting. So that's June, July, August. What do you mean, why? It's a simple thing. As I have tried to organize the craft room and reestablish my living room and dining room, I realized I have so much crafting things and all kinds of crafts that have nothing to do with knitting. I need to use those supplies, especially the paints, before they dry, because if they do, then that would have been a waste of money. And I have a lot of craft paint. I have a lot of beads. I have a lot of stuff. And so I want to take this summer to do some crafting that's not necessarily knitting, so I can use up these supplies, gain a supply of things that I can give as gifts based on people's level of interest, and get the stuff out of my house. I have enough yarn. I don't need all this other stuff because I don't do them as frequently. They're in bins. They're taking up space. No, because one of the older princes said to me, craft room? This looks more like storage. Out of the mouth of babes. But that's all right. I have so much, I need to use it. So I'm going to take the summer and hopefully knock through some of this stuff. And I say this as someone who will shortly be taking a class in something new. But I'm not going to go mad buying supplies. There's only one thing I need to buy for this, and I'm good. Yay. What else has been going on? Non-knitting. I tried to be a good friend. Because one of my friends, he's gone through a divorce, and it's thrown him through a loop and all of this. And apparently he's taking up esoteric things. So he's chanting and all kinds of thinking. And I was trying to be supportive. I didn't realize he thought I should join him in those things. Nah, I'm sorry. I don't have the time. I can listen because I can understand hurt and disappointment. But, okay, he even got me to the point where, because he's always talking about the I Ching, the I Ching, the I Ching. I've heard of it vaguely years ago when my brain cells were young, but it's not something that interested me. I finally got a book on the I Ching. And I gotta tell you, read this, that's not happening. I'm sorry. There are no pictures. Not happening. And what is it? Psychic advisor? Listen, the only psychic advisor I want is the one who will give me the winning lottery numbers. Okay? If the person is not doing that, I mean, what kind of advice do I need? Is there some potentate or some important person who's going to call me and go, "Fat lady, what should I do?" My response is simple. What did you do last time? Did it work? Then do it again. It didn't work? Don't do it. Try something else. I'm done. Okay? But my heart goes out for him, and I'll send a prayer out into the universe because I'm sure he never expected this, and things like that are very painful. So, and now let's move on to knitting. Okay? Remember this? Oh, I remember now. I can't put it up there because it'll blind you. But I wanted to do some designing on a sock. I started, again, back here, I had another row, but I took it out. This is, what do you call it? This is what annoys me. I knew its name, and then I sat here to do this, and now the name has gone straight out of my head. Okay? Duplicate stitch. Duplicate stitch. I like it. I tried, but I thought it was tiresome. So I tried crocheting a stitch. That did not work well. Okay, so I pulled it out, and this week I'll be on a train or a bus. I'll be on one of them. I will again try to really make this sock look awesome. Okay? But what did I do? This. Isn't this cute? This is regular opal yarn that I'm reusing. You see, it's kind of crinkly. I love that crinkly look, but as soon as I wash it, it'll be gone. This is one of my shorties, and I put in this stripe, and the stripe is yarn that I dyed. As I said, as I've been trying to organize this craft room, I must have been a dying demon. I have so many little balls of yarn that I dyed. If you ask me now how I dyed it, I couldn't tell you. As a matter of fact, I wanted to dye last week, and I couldn't remember how. What do I mean by that? I couldn't remember if I had to soak the yarn in citric acid or not. I use Prochem dyes, and I know there's one set that you add citric acid to, and there's another set they have that you don't. I couldn't remember. And I went to look it up online. You know, no one had an answer. So I guess I'm going to have to go to my dye station and test it out. But I had some self-control. I didn't take a whole skein of yarn and run there and do something and then get upset because it wasn't what I wanted. And I wasn't sitting around doing the. One day I have to sit down and maybe with two skeins of yarn that can be dyed, turn them into mini skeins so that when I get a bright idea, I can go and test it. Okay? So if you're a dyer, pray for me because I'll be dying. And when I die, the sink gets dyed, the counter gets dyed, my clothing gets dyed, the floor gets dyed. It'll be a mess, but it'll be fun. Okay? So I did this and I really like this. I'm going to keep this as one of my samples. I was disappointed though, because as you can see, the heel is not bracketed by, well, at the top it is, but it's not really bracketed the way I would like it. So I tried again. And this time I used two different yarns that I dyed. And don't mind me, I'm the string queen. So you know there's string hanging there. This blue seemed like an ordinary blue until I added this yarn that is so bright. You need shades to look at this one. I added it to it and put stripes. Isn't that gorgeous? And this time, who knows? I know I haven't cut my strings yet. Actually, you know what I'm thinking? That maybe I shouldn't, because these are samples and I don't want them to one day go walkabout because somebody thinks they're pretty and they have a finished sock. That was my reasoning behind making only one sample when I try something, but now I'm not going to finish them. That way, if they go walkabout, whomever takes them will have to finish them themselves. But you see how that made that pop? And this time I bracketed the heel. So I'm really pleased with that. And it's amazing. This by itself is blinding bright. The blue by itself, but the two together. Now, the one thing I did find, where is it? Hold on, let me pull out the glasses. I have to, you see where it jogs? You can see that one color stitch is one row below the other. I have to change where my needle number 1 is if I'm going to make a sock like this. Instead of, because it's at the side, so it's coming out in the front. I prefer to move it to the back where it will be under the foot. So my needle number 1 literally has to go another, is that like halfway around the cylinder from where it used to be. So I have to try that. But I'm really pleased with the bracket. But this time I did the bracket. What did I not do? The row across. It's always something. But this is nice. I can do a duplicate stitch because it's half of a row. I can do that. Yeah. A quarter on this side, a quarter on that side, and I will have. But now I know what to do with some of my, what I consider boring yarn colors. Put some of those bright colors into it. Totally different vibe. This I like, okay? So I did that. I have one final thing to show you. And this one is in response to two things. One of you asked about Lycra and socks. And let's see, what's the best way to answer this? I am someone who puts Lycra in like every sock I make. As my socks will tell you, like my socks can talk. For some reason, I like when I put Lycra in and then I give it the blast of heat. Sometimes I forget, but when I give it that blast of heat and it shrinks and I'm looking at what looks like a tiny sock and I'm giving it to someone and they're like, that's what I should think my foot is. And when they slip it on, they're like, this fits. I'm like, yes. And they're like, I'm like, this is really, and they're like, this is really stretchy. Okay. But someone wanted to know if Lycra could make a big sock seem small. Yes, as long as you remember to steam it. Now, we all know when working with Lycra, what do you have to remember? You have to keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't break off. And you've done 20 rows without Lycra. That's 20 rows you have to take out and start the Lycra again. So Lycra is strong, but it's delicately strong. So you have to keep an eye on it. And as to how do I use my Lycra, what do I put? I do not put it, we all know I use the tension mask from a flatbed, but I just go to that little edge piece that's like an E, and I put the Lycra in that. It doesn't go through disc, it's not getting any tensioning. The only tensioning it gets is from the machine as it pulls yarn through. I had a second question, and that is, I haven't taken it off. I have a train ride this week, so I saved this to have something to do. I created the sock, and you see it's got the, why do I do that? Okay, it's not the rib. Well, it's where you turn, it's the cuff. It's the cuff, okay? And this is a long sock. This is not a short sock. Someone wanted to know if this sock will stay up by itself even though it does not have the traditional rib. I checked with a couple of people and they said yes, it should. But I promised to test it out, so I've knitted it in another yarn that I dyed. Could you imagine if I had thought to put this in there? That would have been on and popping. But and that's the rest of the yarn just in there making a bulge. I'm going to finish this, so I have to take off the bonnet, the cast on bonnet, and I have to close the toe. And then I'm going to wear it and see if it stays up. Because I realize I've been counting on other people for feedback from the sock, and the typical feedback has been thanks, and they're gone. How did it wash? Fine. Were there any problems? And they're looking at me like, it's a pair of socks. What's wrong with you? So I am going to become my own tester. That way, cause I'm still waiting for the over the knee sock report. Hasn't come in yet, but that's all right. I am going to start making the socks for me, and I'm going to start testing them out. And you know, that also reminds me, this particular sock, this is the, if it's near me, it falls house. Those were glasses. That's all right. I don't need them right now. What I wanted to do, what did I, and I started to. I got tired of doing the duplicate stitch on this. So I said, you know what? I can block this and do some lines in this color. But I didn't want to do the duplicate stitch. So I said, I got a crochet hook. And I said, let me crochet a line and that'll block it. What a horrible idea. What did I end up with? Look at that. A raised rib and the side sloppy looking stitches. I'll be duplicate stitching this because I don't like this. It has potential. I think if it was a black sock with just this white thing, or if it was a white sock with this black trim, it would work. But for this, it looks kind of too busy, and I don't like the ridges. And I want to do some of this color work on the part that will hit the floor, under your foot. So this is not a good idea. But I'm glad I tried it out. At least I know, don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay? So this is what I've done this week. So next week, this should come back, and this one should come back. And so should this. And I should be able to report and tell you, did it stay up on its own, even though it doesn't have rib, but it has a cuff at the top. Which reminds me, I know someone who makes a cuff at the top, and she puts the elastic, the very thin one, in there. She sews it in because she's afraid of her ribber. It works for her. The people she gives socks to don't complain. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay? So this has been my week. Thank you so much for sharing a few minutes with me here today. I hope you had something good to drink while you were listening to me. And I gotta go now. I'm tired. You don't know how much stuff I moved today from one room to another. Bye. I catch you next time.